Take Command podcast from Odyssey Sports. I'm Craig Hoffman. He is Logan Paulson. Make sure you join us. Tap Sports Bar, MGM National Harbor, coming up this Sunday for the Take Command pregame show. We start at 10 live on 106.7 The Fan and the Team 980 on YouTube as well. And you can come hang out in person starting at 11 a.m. Then, of course, about 90 minutes after the game, the Take Command postgame show, the Instant Reaction podcast. We do it live on YouTube at the Team 980 and at 106.7 The Fan. Defense time, Logan. Let's get into it. I've been on the Chase Young thing for a couple of days. So people that have been listening to the radio show, people that listen to the post-game pod, they've heard me talk about this. I think Chase is – there's two things that stood out that I want to talk about. One is the discipline element, where I think there are times where he's getting – he's going for the win on the rush, and it's actually not the best thing. And especially against a quarterback like Josh Allen – just rush your line, keep him in the pocket. Do not let him get out and make the big explosive plays. Although sometimes Josh Allen makes big explosive plays that should be pro. Like that first third down or the first drive, the one to Diggs is like one of the craziest plays I've ever seen in my life. He's running right. He throws leaning backwards and he hits Diggs at a point that he couldn't have handed the ball to him better. But I think there's also an effort thing with Chase, like after he misses Allen, for instance, and then he's kind of jogging behind the play. And that's one where I also kind of I'm genuinely asking, like, is that an issue, or is that just that's a big man who's put forth a lot of effort in the first 5 seconds of the play and he's tired and there's just nothing you can do about that, and that's kind of standard football. Because I watch guys like Sweat, I watch guys like Allen pursue, and sometimes like there's a cutback and they wind up getting back in the play. Like you hustle because you just don't know what's going to happen. And I think on top of the discipline side of it, there is a maturity, and this goes back to Chase, being a young player and not having played much football in the NFL, where it's like, hey man, if you want to be great at this, and the motor is going to be one of the things that people talk about with you, I can't see you jogging behind plays either. You got to finish in all aspects.
Yeah, so elite defensive players, they're special and they're elite because they finish well, usually, right? And I think that's one of the things about Montez's game. Like, he's one of the best in the league at that. Like, he's got a good motor and he finishes hard. But there's times where you watch Allen or Payne and they're big and they're tired and they don't run to the football the way that you'd like them to run. Like, that's just life.
Yeah, they're big dudes in the NFL, and it's hard.
Like, even like Big Ridge, like I like Ridge. He plays super hard. He finishes plays, but sometimes you get that screen and Big Ridge doesn't have the gas. You know what I'm saying? He's just going to he's going to do what Big Ridge does. So like there are with defensive linemen specifically, the great ones are ones that are just like relentless and condition well. But that's the other thing is like those guys are playing a ton of snaps. The rotation for that defensive line, it's like they are on the field a lot. I don't know what the stat is, but like Kai was talking about on his podcast, and it's like I heard it and I was like, wow, that's a lot of time for them to be on the field. So that's one thing, conditioning. But I do think I'd like, yes, you make a move, you make a decision, always finish the play. Like that's like high school football 101. But like I'm saying, it's with those big defensive linemen, like you got to be realistic sometimes. Like
Chase played 54 of 68 snaps, so that's tough sled.
A lot of snaps, right? And like you like him to finish, but so like again, like I just think about all the D lines I played with, and even the really good ones, even the ones that are really good at finishing, sometimes they don't have the gas. So yes, you want them to finish. Yes, that's a huge part of football. Yes, that makes your defense better. Emphatically, yes, all the time. But I'm also a realist too. And sometimes they can't do it. And you would have to ask Chase and John and Payne and Montez, like, can you do it? And if they say no, like, I'm going to believe you. Like that's just how.
Well, at that point, do you consider the rotations and whatever? Like, what's more important to you, to have those guys jog at the end of a play that they're probably not going to make, but be ready for the next snap, or to you run your face off and then jog to the sideline, and we'll have someone else play for you, and the percentages change.
And I think that's one of the things that you're hoping maybe is like when Obata comes back, and that those guys get more time in the rotation. Casey and James should probably get a little bit more time in the rotation to keep those guys fresher. But I do think there is a maturity thing there with Chase. Like when you watch him, it's like, I don't know, like sometimes, we talked on Sunday or on Monday after we watched the film a little bit, and it was like, you were like, oh, Chase is, he's freelancing all the time. I don't agree with that assessment, but I do think he is freelancing more than he probably should. And I think that affects John in a negative way. And I think you want both those guys to be rushing. I don't want Chase rushing at 100% all the time if it makes John rush at 60%. I want John
Right.
rushing at 80%, and I want Chase rushing at 80%, because that's like when you watch Montez, like that's what he does. He's not always trying to maximize his personal rush. He's trying to maximize the rush of the four guys that he's playing with. And I think that there is something to that from a professionalism and maturity standpoint that is very, very valuable. Now, Chase did a great job, like on some of those inside going rogue moves. He's creating pressures like you're talking about. Like he's in the quarterback's face, but it makes the rest of the group less effective. Like there's one early where Allen scrambles out. Josh Allen scrambles out, and Chase makes an inside move, creates a nice pressure, but it kind of screws John, because John's like, do I have to get to outside contain? He's like trying to spin off and get up the field, and it creates this big window for him to step up and run. Imagine if Chase just does what he's supposed to do, has a nice, powerful bull rush there. John does his bull. That pocket condenses, and then
Right.
Josh has nowhere to go. And so even though he got a pressure, and that's going to be a plus based on PFF's metrics, like that hurts the defense, because it.
And that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
like it's not
right.
all the time, but like it happened a lot, and it happened in key
does it all the
situations.
time. Yeah, he does it. He does it frequently. Like not all the time. He does it frequently.
Right.
And he does it in moments where you're like, don't do it now. Like, why are
Right.
you doing
You're in
that now?
3rd and 10.
Yeah.
Like just make him beat you from the pocket
Yeah.
in a really tight, condensed pocket and a challenged throw.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that is, we probably should have started wider on the defensive breakdown, but here I go, single track mine on the thing that we've been talking about for 48
Right.
hours. And by the way, one of the important guys on the team, so it's not like it's a bad thing to talk about, but it just kind of shows like how one element of a defense, I'm not going to say like how Chase ruined the defense, that's too much, but like how one element on any given play, like you have a really solid rush, but one guy busts the coverage, you're dead. Guy misses it, you fit a run correctly, one guy misses a tackle, well, now the back's out. Like these singular elements defensively can matter so much. And on a day where I think the defense played well overall, I look at some of the explosive plays that they have, and I think a lot of them come back to the way that Allen was able to manipulate the pocket. And a lot of those, I think, are Chase trying to do a little bit too much. And it's like, dude, if you just smash double after double, this defense is going to be really, really hard to beat. And you might wind up with a few less home runs on your stat sheet, but the team's going to wind up with more wins. And I think that's kind of the point that I felt pretty comfortable. I feel pretty comfortable making after watching it back. And it sounds like you more or less agree.
I more or less agree. Yeah, I think, and the other one that sticks out is the one on the goal line, right, where they're taking the shot out of the goal line, and he takes an inside move, and he kind of washes past the pocket, and you're like, man, if you just bull this edge, get that sucker nice and tight, it affects his vision, And I know that's so hard for a young, kind of inexperienced player to understand. Like, you're like, I'm going to get a pressure. I'm going to get a sack. Like, that's more impactful.
You're thinking, I'm going to get a safety. We're at the goal. Like, Allen standing in his own end zone. And Deion Dawkins is just like, I know this dude's about to try to do this inside move again.
Yeah.
And Chase rips inside, and Dawkins turns him and literally runs him across the pocket into Montez Sweat on the other side.
And so then
Allen fades right where Chase was and finds Diggs.
Yeah. And again, like, there's something to just being disciplined. And I will say, like, specifically, like, because I've seen a lot of stuff about the pass rush, the Bills deserve a ton of credit, man. I think they understood. They knew where our bread was buttered. They knew where all of our draft capital, they knew where all our studs were. And they called a game that I thought was really nice. And you see this over the history of this group being together, is teams that can call an effective game. Quick game, screens, draws, runs, play action pass is really something that's very disruptive for this group, right? And how they block the play action pass looks. It's great. It just makes it hard for the rusher to find a rhythm. And like when you talk to elite pass rushers, one of the things is like finding your rhythm as a rusher, being able to identify passing situations. Like I think it's the drive where Kendall ends up getting the interception. On first down, it's like a holding penalty or something. Oh yeah, holding on Spencer Brown. It's 2nd and 20. And everybody, the 40 defensive linemen, know that it's a rush. Chase power rushes, Montez power rushes, John does his thing. The pocket constricts, he has to throw it away. Like that rush works, and you're able to create an effective pressure there because everyone knows. I know that they're going to pass the ball. I know what's going to happen, and now I can rush how I want to rush. when they stay in like these positive down and distance scenarios, right, and they call an effective game, I think it makes it really hard for them to find a rhythm and tee off and pin their ears back. And also, I do think there were times where I watched the game and I'm like, man, they're rushing a little bit too conservatively because of their respect for Josh Allen. And so, like, it's this double-edged sword of like the game was called well. You've got a really dynamic player back there who knows how to extend plays, and you just get the rush that's kind of neutered a little bit because of all the things you're thinking about with regards to rushing the passer, which it should just be, I want to rush the passer, let's go do it.
Right. And Ron talked about that on Monday. He said, I think our guys got spooked a little bit. And if you watch those first 2 third downs, like you get it. Yeah. Allen able to split, part the sea and rush for a first down on a third. I think it was 3rd and 10. And then the next one, I mean, again, that play to Diggs is just ridiculous where he's rolling right and it's like sidearms at 40 yards in the air. And you're like, what the hell is that? So I get it. I think some of the other big plays too, like I think we should talk about the touchdown to Davis after the interception. So it's a 35-yard ball, and it looks like a honey hole shot, which typically like the honey hole against cover 2 is like 17, 18 yards downfield, and that's a tough throw for quarterbacks. Like I'm sure you'll say Forrest needs to be better and needs to be better coverage there, but like that ball is on Davis so fast that I think against a lot of quarterbacks, Forrest has a lot more time and maybe he's able to contest and make that. But the way, from a pass rush, from a secondary, like it shows you how elite Josh Allen is and how hard it is to beat him, because there's just stuff he does that nobody else except for it's like he and Mahomes are the only ones that do it. And mentally to understand, it's like, if you're a hitter and you're used to facing 96 and all of a sudden a dude throws 100, like it's going to take you a second to adjust to 100. And I don't think the Commanders adjusted to Josh Allen really all day long, frankly.
Well, on that one, I really like the play call. They get in, they bring in their extra offensive lineman. They've got another tight end on the field. They bring Diggs in motion across the formation. And that play is designed, that pylon route, it's like a deep corner. So it's like this really high-angled corner. And you call it a pylon because you're running to the front pylon of the end zone. Right. And the whole idea is that, on these routes where I think number 2 is running a big corner, right? He's running like a sail route is what I would call that. And then you get the flat by Diggs. And so you're trying to clear that safety out for that corner route there, right? And so you're running goes, you're running verticals, and you kind of run an angle at the safety to hold him there so the corner's going to be open. A couple of years ago, or when I was with Kyle, like basically they were like, let's just have that guy run a route that's live in the progression. So you get a safety who's playing a receiver with inside leverage on an outbreaking route. And so to me, like, that's tough sledding. That is tough sledding. Like, because it's like, could Forrest be better? I'm sure he would tell you yes. But like, if I'm a coordinator, I'm calling this play to get that look. And I know Josh can make that throw. So I'm like, this is exactly what we want, right? And I thought Jack did a really good job all game of kind of playing softer, more conservative coverage structures. And really, the defense did a good job of kind of blanketing routes. If you're going to run a lot of cover 2, which they're in here, I think, if I remember correctly,
they are.
Or quarters or something, like this is what happens. People say, oh, what are our cover 2 beaters? Can we get a shot off of this? Yeah, let's hit this. And like, that's tough, man. Like, I know people want me to be like, Forrest, you suck. And like having coached, I coach football at the high school level. Like I've watched a ton of football. I played in the NFL for 10 years. Like that's what you draw up to beat that coverage. And it's like, like, could Jack have put him in a better situation to be successful?
Yeah, if you knew the play call beforehand, benefit of hindsight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but like that happens. And it's enhanced by the fact that receiver is really good, and that quarterback makes that throw on a dart. Like, there's no arc on that ball for Forrest to go undercut it. It's just like Josh Allen did some really special stuff, and that's a huge reason why they do what they do. I mean, I think another play that's interesting that kind of shows the Josh Allen spookedness is the rushing touchdown he has. Cam Curl has a free shot at him, and people
understand how big he is too. That's another thing.
Allen's like 6'5", 240, right? Yeah. And so Curl's got a free shot at him, and if that is almost any other quarterback in the league, Cam launches and you're holding your breath. He doesn't get like a targeting call because he launches and tries to just demolish him, right? Yeah. He runs almost by him. Yeah. Like he's like, I have to take this funky angle because Josh is going to try to do something crazy. So instead of just like wrapping him up and hitting him, he, basically like runs at his back shoulder almost. Like, I don't know what he's trying to do, but that's what happens when it's Josh Allen is like you get you overthink it. You get a little bit spooked. Things happen in a way that is different than facing anybody else, which is why
Yeah.
that dude is that dude, and he's able to run by John, who I think was held a little bit on the play,
Yeah.
and
I
then
thought so too.
get in the end zone. But it's stuff like that where, back to your original point of the pass rush, these guys aren't playing the way they usually play because they're afraid of giving up the big one. And honestly, that sometimes is how you wind up giving up the big one.
Yeah, and I think, on that one with Cam, like Josh deserves a lot of credit. Like he sees the rush, he steps up hard, right? And it messes up Cam's angle. And then he's big enough that you're not going to bring him down with an arm tackle. You're hoping John gets off, he gets held. And like that's the problem of playing elite players at the position. That being said, man, I really think the defense did a great job. Like,
Yeah.
I know that sounds insane. And I know fans, I can hear them already like, wow, fire, everything's on fire. It was 16-0 after 4 turnovers going into the fourth quarter. Like, are you out of your mind? Like, that's incredible. Like, good job for them. But now you could argue, like, was the Buffalo going as hard as they could? Did they have their foot on the gas the whole time? That's debatable. But like, they get an interception. They get a stop on 4th and 2, right? Like, they did some really good stuff there. And I thought they played a nice conservative structure. They made them earn it down the field. And like, at some point, the dam's going to break, right? You get a pick. You get that right after the 4th and 2 is a fumble by Gibson. You know how demoralizing that is? Like,
Awful.
as a defense, like I've been on sidelines where that's happened. And right when that happened, I'm like, they're going to score a touchdown. Like, you just lose the moral composure, like the moral motivation, right? So they go score. Great. 22-0, whatever it is, right?
23, yeah.
It's still not a crazy score, right? It's still not like totally outlandish. The next drive is the pick 6. Are you kidding me? Like, what are we like?
And they follow that up with 3 and out on a minus 6-yard drive. And then Kyle Allen comes in and hands the ball off a ton, and that's when it gets to 37.
Yeah. And so like I look at that, I'm like, if you were grading the defense and you said, hey man, they only going to score 16 points going to the fourth quarter. Like, I'd be like, man, Washington's probably going to win this game. But like they just got no support.
Defense played well enough to win.
Yeah, they got no support from the offense. And I'm an offensive player, and it's 2023. Like, you need to have offensive support as a defense to win football games. This reminds me a lot of the Philly game from last year. Like, Philly hit some big plays, right? The first game of Philly last year, so like week 4 or whatever it was. They had a lot of big plays, lots of explosives, but it was like 20-3 or something. Like it was a score that was very, very manageable in that game. And this felt very similar to that. Jack called a good game. Maybe you could argue that, hey, how do you make the rush? How do you engage the rush more? Do you spy more? Whatever it is. But I really believe like 16-0 going to the fourth quarter after 4 turnovers. Like, come on, man. Doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah. So just because I know this has been a criticism, like, let's address it head on. Like, is there a way that they could have generated more pressure? Or is that exposing yourself to too much danger down the field with all the weaponry that Buffalo has? And by the way, how hard Allen is to get down.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're looking at when you look at the all 22 and you just watch it down to down, like Jack's philosophy, I think is one, and I'm speaking just off of observation. I haven't talked to him about this.
Right.
He's okay with you going on a long drive. He's okay with that because he thinks you're going to mess it up. And for the most part,
by the way, it's crazy. A couple of those Buffalo drives, like the long drives they had, they overcame penalties. Like they got all this, like Washington got all the stuff they
right
were hoping. And then Josh would make some crazy play on a third down, and all of a sudden the drive gets extended after a tripping penalty, after a hold, after whatever.
Yeah. And so I think that again, like it was, like you said, it went as they thought. Josh made some plays, but they weren't productive drives in the sense that it wasn't leading to it wasn't 28-0. It wasn't like they were getting touchdowns, they were getting field goals. And so I think you're actually okay with that. Like you're okay. Like I'm okay with that game flow. Like I know people want to get pressures, they want to get sacks. That's important. But when you look at the game flow, it's like that's a productive defensive performance by this Commanders defense. And as much as people want to get more pressure, like it doesn't really matter. And so like when you look at it, Jack brought a pressure in the goal in the red zone where John scores a touchdown. You can do that, and Jack has that in the bag. But I really feel like he didn't need it. And I know fans are like, well, Josh was running all over. Like, they only scored 16 points. Like that. And to me, that is such a valuable metric here in terms of efficacy. off of turnover. That's the other thing. So many turnovers in this game and only 16.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. And so, like, I just think, like, people are saying we need more pressure. And yes, you can do more stuff. You can blitz, you can spy, Cinco packages, all that stuff. But I'm kind of like, why, when the production was there for the defense? And I know people are gonna be like, they scored 37 points, whatever. Go back and watch the game, man. Like, the defense was not the issue here, and I really hope that, like, that is clear. I know, like they did a good job.
Yeah, there's one of the drives that they give up points on is a 19 play drive.
Yeah,
Or sorry,
sure
not 19 play drive, 19-yard drive.
Yeah,
And
that's tough.
I think if you're going to be super critical, some of the frustrating stuff is like a couple of the field goal drives are ones where they start, in their
Like
own
deep,
end,
yeah.
and they're able to get out of it, and ultimately you get the stop. But like, can you get the stop before you give up the field? Even if you give up 3 first downs when you start at your own 2 or your own 1, that's still a punt situation. So like, sure,
there was
but
the backed up one I thought was interesting. Like, but you get 3, right? Like,
yeah, like at the end of the day, like that offense is really good. Take 7 off the board because it's literally a pick 6. One of them is enhanced by a big punt return as well. Like, you hold Buffalo to mid-20s, you should be in the game, and they weren't because they didn't score until the literal last drive of the game.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else that we want to hit on before we get up on out of here and finish this film breakdown?
No, I think we're okay. I mean, yeah, I think we touched on everything.
It's almost an hour of podcasting. I sure hope so. All right. When we pick up next, obviously we'll have take 5. So make sure you're subscribed to not miss the fun stories from Logan's days playing in Philadelphia, my days covering games in Philadelphia. That will be the take 5 on Thursday. Ironically, Logan, the way that we work when we tape these, the take 5 for Peyton Manning that we stumbled on earlier in the podcast will be the one that people have already heard. So that's a fun little tidbit. The way we're going to time travel on that one. And then Friday, obviously, we'll have the preview podcast with the Eagles. So looking forward to that. And then also housekeeping next Thursday for the Bears game. I don't know exactly what our pod schedule will be. That's why you subscribe. That way you get it whenever it comes out. But the Take Command pregame show will be at Tap Sports Bar at MGM. So that's something that Logan might be learning right now. But we'll be at Tap Sports Bar at MGM. I'll be out there for the radio show, and then
on Thursday.
And then before
right.
the Bears game, and Logan will join me for when the simulcast begins. So I'll fill you in off air on all those details. But that's good. The plan. Sure hope that works with your schedule. So that's it, and that's all for Take Command. We'll see you guys later in the week, and then on Sunday on the radio. Thanks for watching this clip of Take Command. First, why don't you like it? It lets other people know that it was good, and then they should watch it too. And Logan, we have a new exclusive home for full episodes.
We do. 1067 The Fans YouTube page. Go check it out and please subscribe.
Yeah, do what Logan said.
Do it.
Very, very smart.